Mark, first up, I want your view on this gas-fired power station announced from the federal government today. You say they had no choice to step in because of the train wreck left by Matt Kean's energy roadmap. That's the crux of the issue here, you say, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. 6 months ago, Matt Kean, the New South Wales Energy Minister, was promising an avalanche of private sector investment, not only in renewables, but in gas peaking plants and pumped hydro to keep the lights on when the sun's not shining and the wind's not blowing. He promised $30 billion of new investment, but it hasn't come about. AGL have pulled the pin with their gas peaking plant next to Tomago there in Newcastle. They walked away because of the uncertainty Kean's roadmap caused in the energy market. And it's left a huge hole, not just with the announcement today, but let's not forget at Tallawarra, the gas peaking plant, 330 megawatts in the Illawarra. The New South Wales government had to put in $85 million of taxpayers' money to make it happen. So Kean has destabilised the market. The private investment hasn't been there, and now we've got enormous public money to do the obvious thing, to provide the power generation at certain times, peak times, to keep the lights on.
I want to go to the polling. I had a good look at some published polls. I'm not getting privy to private polling, but I'm looking at the published polls and I did a sort of a tracking analysis. It's really interesting. Labor's only moved a couple of points. The Nationals, in fact, have gone back quite significantly from where they started at the time the by-election was called. One Nation's almost doubled it in terms of improvement. The Greens have gone back marginally at about 6%. The Shooters have done very, very well. My look of it says this is really going to come down to preferences. How's it playing out on the ground in the last couple of days going into Saturday? And what do you think is going to happen on the weekend?
Well, it's optional preferential. So in some respects, the by-election is like a first past the post, and you might find a winning candidate who's got a primary vote in the 20s because there's 13 candidates. I think a lot of it will come down to it's a very parochial seat, as it should be. It's missed out. It's been badly neglected by the National Party for decades, and Labor, of course, would run the coal jobs out of town. So it's a seat where people, I think, are looking very much to the quality of the local candidates, and we couldn't be happier at One Nation with Dale McNamara, who's a self-made man, a great Australian success story. I can honestly say, Peter, I've never seen a fresh candidate, first time up in politics, who knows so many people in the electorate. He seems to know every second person in Singleton in particular, and they love him.
That is always a test.
It's a good thing.
That is always a test. Some politicians used to talk themselves up big in Canberra, but when you'd go on the road with the leader or the Prime Minister and they'd walk up and down the main street, you knew those who were fair income because so many locals would call out their name and say good day. Others, I've been with MPs, would walk up and down the main street and people didn't know who they were. And they were always the ones that were a bit worrying going into polls. I've got to ask you about PETA, not Peter Credlin, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, this crazy activist mob. They're saying that farmers need to sort of catch and release mice, pick them up, carry them back into a city, let's hope put them at the front door of these PETA people, but they don't want the mice killed. Now, goodness me, this is absolutely mad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite deranged, but, you know, Peter, it's a sign of some of the challenges to our civilisation, because we have animal justice representatives in the New South Wales Upper House, and you've got to understand they regard a human life as equal with an animal life, and they want to overturn the pecking order we've had as a society that humans fairly and as much as possible control nature to our benefit, and human life comes first. So there's a challenge there to our society that you can say these people are nutty, you can say it's quite, it's funny at one level they could even think this way, but they get support, they get elected to the parliament, and it's a challenge to the idea, what I think is sacrosanct, that human life and human needs must come first, the animal world second, and the plant world third, and at long last you can put the Greens at the bottom of the pecking order.